Welcome to Garden House Studio. Today's is the second video in the series of Thrift Flipping My Stash. And again, I have a set of bookends which came out of the same free box at the end of a flea market. And the first thing I did with these is I'm going to sand them just to give them a little tooth. So I'm basically sanding off that glossy finish and getting it ready for paint. Wiping it down, and then we're ready for the next step. I will be using the Invitation Only Mould, which is a part of the spring release from IOD Designs, and I'm going to be using the dog and the cat for this project. And I'm using IOD clay. Probably you may want to use the resin for this because these two mold castings are extremely detailed, and you have to be really careful when you're taking them out and gluing them down to make sure you do not lose any of that gorgeous detail. I put cornstarch in the mold to make sure that it would have an easy release, but you still have to be careful because those ears are so thin and so tiny. And I went ahead and I maneuvered that mold in a couple different ways to make sure that I did not lose any of the pieces. I'm using heavy body gel from Pentart to glue the dog down on the bookend. And he fits perfectly on this bookend. Carefully pressing him down. I don't want to lose any of the detail. And once I have him pressed down, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make the cat. And the same exact thing, I'm going to put a little cornstarch in there. I'm using IOD clay, air dry clay. And I'm going to be real careful when I go to take it out. The cat has a very thin neck where his head and where his neck is connected to his body. And that is the usual place when you have a casting and you have a lot of variation in depth, where you will get some cracking, and you will see that later on. But right now I'm taking it out and very carefully don't want to lose those ears. Also gluing the cat down with heavy body gel. I try to do it as thin a layer as I possibly can because I don't like glue or even the heavy body gel to squish out of the edges. It just it doesn't look the same when you have it really nice and clean edges. Again, just carefully pushing that down so I do not lose any of that detail. You know, the cat and the dog are pretty dapper. They're dressed, they have top hats on. They're super cool. And here they are, waiting to dry. I let them dry probably for 3 hours before I went ahead and put some paint on them. And the reason I am painting them is I want them to dry a little slower. And when I paint them, it prevents them from drying on the top quite so fast. I'm only painting the castings with the gray paint, and the rest of the wood I am painting with a primer. I want to be able to put a coat of paint around the whole thing. I'm using a really small paintbrush to get all along the edges of the dog and the cat, just so there's a really clear place where you can see where they plaque, kind of like the plaque of the bookend ends and the castings begin. I'm using Wise Owl primer in a color called gray. The cat did have a crack the whole width of the neck, and I had hoped by painting it gray and filling that in you wouldn't notice it so much, but you did notice it. So I went ahead and put some more clay and really pushed it in there, and then painted it gray again, and good as new. You would never notice the difference. So now it's time to paint the wood frame, and I am using Annie Sloan chalk paint in duck egg, and it's like a bluish green. And because what I want to do with these castings of the dog and the cat, I really want them to have an old brass kind of patina. So I think the duck egg is going to be a perfect background for that. So I'm painting the whole thing, and it's had such great coverage. I only gave it one coat of paint. Once both of the bookends were painted with the chalk paint, I let them dry till they were thoroughly dry. And then it was time to work with the patina. And I am using a Patina Effect set from Pentart. So the first thing you do is you put a glue all over where you're going to put the patina. So I am just using the Pentart varnish and glue for decoupage, which works perfect. Now I'll tell you, I used a little too much of the powder. It came out a little faster than I would have wanted it to. So you'll see that in a minute. And sorry about that candy wrapper. It kind of got glued down there during the middle of this video and I couldn't get rid of it. So it's stuck there. So this is just, it's a powder, it's a brass, it's antiquing, um, kind of like, I think it's kind of like brass, antique brass. And yeah, I didn't realize how much was coming out. So once you have that on the piece, then you take your brush and you push it into the places where you would like it. And you could see I had so much, although it comes out perfect in the end. Just really get rid of anything that's still powdery. The next part of this process is to take the little vials, and one of them is green and the other one is bluish green, and you just drip them where you want to have that patina. Again, a little bit too much came out, and I had lots of it, more than I think I was supposed to have. And then I put a little bit of the green. First I did the blue, and then I did a little bit of the green. I will tell you, this is the first time I've used it on a project. I used it a little bit just to try it out, but this is the first time I used it on a project. So you have to leave it overnight to let it do its thing. And here it is, lots and lots of patina. It's totally dry and it's got lots of patina on it. Now, I will tell you that these products are best recommended that you use gloves with them. Again, I am going to take the antiquing paste and I am going to bring out the detail. The patina is going to stay in the deep cracks of the design, and I am just trying to hit the high spots with the, this is the antiquing paste. The next several steps in this video are really going to be putting product on and then taking some of it off. I'm putting the antiquing paste on and then I wipe some of it back. And it's several layers of that, putting it on, wiping some of it back, just to kind of make it look like age and layers where it's been aged. So I want to show you all of the different products that were used in this creation. And on to the next step. So what I'm doing here is I am adding a little white for liming, and what I am using is the Pentart bonding primer. It is a really stick to it primer, and I just need a little bit of white. So again, I'm going to put it on and then I'm going to wipe some of it back so that I can see the antiquing underneath. Now the bonding primer is dry, and now I'm putting a little bit more of the Annie Sloan chalk paint and duck egg just to bring the background into the foreground. Just a little bit with a dry brush. You don't really see it probably in the video, but you see it up close. Again, to get this look, I'm just adding layers upon layers, pulling some back, and then adding more layers. Once I'm happy with the layers and the patina, it's time to wax the whole project. So first thing is clear wax over the chalk paint, and then I am going to use an antiquing wax, which looks a little black, but once you wipe it back, it kind of just makes the whole thing look a little aged. I want to kind of frame in this circle. So what I am doing, I'm finishing that edge with a little more of the antiquing brass paste, and just let that dry. And then here is the antiquing wax. And this is a Wise Owl antiquing wax. It is actually called black walnut. And because it's got clear wax underneath, it's pretty easy to just wipe it back and just get a little bit on mostly on the edges, just trying to give it a little bit more character. Once this wax dries, the final thing will be to kind of buff it back a little bit to give it a little more sheen. But I'll wait till it dries. And I did both the cat and the dog exactly the same. And there you have it. The two pieces that make up this bookend set. And I hope you've enjoyed this video.